Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's July 31st. It's the last day of the month. We're going to start another new month. We're actually going into the August. Most school will be starting back in most places here soon, and hopefully things will start to pick up. Pretty exciting day today, even though there's not a lot of trades today. This was a huge sell-off, and if you caught it early, which there were a couple opportunities to catch it early, at least one, maybe two, depending on how your chart's set up. But it started out really slow, and this is not untypical at all. We started out really strong, tight in this real tight trading range, which is basically the overnight lows and the overnight highs up here. Once we drop lower, you'd look for a measured move, so you just measure the distance of the first half of the range and drop it down. You can see that's about where we went to right there. So um, that would have been a nice target, and then of course it bounced, and we never could get back up in that second half. And this is where you had a couple of chances to get in. This one right here was perfect. If you caught that, you catch a runner, and you can ride this all the way down. And that was a huge sell-off. This blue area here is an hour prior, say like at noontime, till the market looked like the news item was not really going to affect the market. It didn't look like we were going to get any action at all from it. I guess there were no real surprises. And then once the market digested the rate cut, off the market went. So might probably would have been a good buying opportunity. It may still be a good buying opportunity. It wouldn't surprise me to see a little correction here. We're back below 3,000 again. We've been making all-time highs. So let me back out a little bit. It won't take long. There's not a lot of trades today because most of the day you were just stuck in this mess without really a lot of setups going into this noon hour. And you got to be careful. Um, if you get long inside this noon hour, you probably get stuck in this and can't even get out of it. And then all of a sudden the market goes haywire when the news comes out. And you can see this is when it kind of got crazy. It looked like it probably settled down. Um, by about 10 minutes after. You might could stretch this a little further just to be safe. I'd say by there, you're pretty obvious the market was not going to get too crazy. We'd settle down. And so you might start trading again there. That's about 14, 15 minutes after, something like that. But, even though there's some volatility right in here, this is not that big a deal. Um, I mean, the whole thing's maybe 10 points. I mean, I've seen one bar be 10 or 15 points when it's something really crazy. But anyway, let's back out, talk about the trades, and we'll wrap up today. It's just not a lot to talk about today because it was so quiet going into that news event. We had a little bit of a sell-off here. It was real slow, though. And then we had a fairly nice rally, but you didn't get a lot of opportunity to enter it, at least not on my chart. If your chart looked, if you had some better entries here, we'll talk about them. I'll point them out. But 7 o'clock came right in this little congestion area, but what I liked about this was you got a little double test here. Really, you had a double test right here, but I don't like that signal bar, so you could still count that high and then test it once, twice, and look at that nice bearish bar. That's a great place to get short. And if you catch that one, you can ride this pretty much down into this congestion area. You would have got a runner there. Um, and there's actually a failed second entry long right here. Um, the second entry actually triggered here, but we never broke lower, and then you actually get another entry right here. But this was the first time we broke lower after the second entry triggered. So when it broke below that bar, that's when you could consider it a failure. And so you got a failed second entry long when it broke lower right there. So you may have taken that one. You could argue for that to be red. The problem is you're right into this support running across here. And you can see all that support running across there, and you may still have enough room there, but if you got enough room there, you could argue for that to be red. It's real close. I just made it green. Once we got into this right here, I'd just stay out. And then of course we come down here. The measured move was right in here. Or actually, no, this was still the first part. This was the overnight low down here, and I actually originally had it right here, but I moved it up when you could tell that was more of the spot to be. But this was still a failed break lower. You actually had a higher low right here, but not a very good setup. And then you got a failed second entry short, and you still got a lot of room just back to the EMA. So I like going long there. You're probably going to snap back, and you may go all the way back to the top. So I like entering there. And then it pulls back right here. And this was just this line going across here. I'm going to move it out of the way. We actually got back inside it, turned down. I don't have a very good signal bar there, though. It's not a horrible, it's fairly bullish, but I'd want a second entry if I couldn't get a better signal bar than that. And you just don't get it. Same thing here. It comes back to the trend line. And you see what happens. It breaks higher and then fails on you. But there is a second entry here. If you had a good signal bar here, I'd take that trade all day long. But it's just not a very good signal bar on my chart. So depending on what you had there, there may have been an entry. Then of course we come back and we get a first entry. We pull back, and so you can count this as a second entry. It's not a perfect setup by any means, but it is a double test. And notice that we kind of made this low, then we tested it once, and then we tested it. You really could argue that we made the low here and tested it 3 times there. So, and that's a nice bullish bar. So I like going long there. It didn't go back and make it to the top, but it's still a good setup. And then that took you into the 12 o'clock hour. And I just wouldn't trade after that 12 o'clock hour on a day like this. And you see what happened. If you'd have got in anywhere in there, you'd have got stuck until the news basically came out, and you've been in trouble. Unless you just, even if you were on the right side, you probably would have got stopped out. Notice how it runs down here, runs back up here, then runs down here. So you can't hardly get it right. Even if you do have the direction right, because the price, if you'll notice and study this, you'll see the price action still holds out even during news events. But the problem is it moves so quickly and so far and so fast that you can't trade by the usual rules with our, and you can get stopped out even if you know where it's going. So it's best just to be out about an hour before on something like a FOMC announcement, because you don't want to get caught in something like this and just get whipsawed. So really, by the time the market came back, we had a chance to enter right here. Notice you got a little double top. You get a first entry, then it tried to go higher again. A second entry, a nice bearish bar, and you just expect prices to try to come back down here to the lows again. We actually run back up and get another little test right there, and a second entry short. Right, actually the second entry triggered here, but this was your signal bar. But when it tried to push higher one more time and turn down, there's actually a little trend line working up through there, and you get a close outside a new high, and then down it goes. And if you catch this trade, this is the trade of the day. I didn't even put the trend line on it. There's a shorter term trend line here too. And if you'd have just rode this down till you got your first close outside, and then if you broke above that exit, you could have gotten most all of that entire move there. You got all of it, but that maybe a point or so there. 2 points maybe. This one didn't, and what I did, I drew this trend line off these lows, and you can see there, and just drug it up, and we didn't get back to that trend line till here. So I don't see any real good way to get in this short right here, unfortunately. And you don't want to be entering down. Every one of these entries gets you in at the low, and finally you come back to the trend line again. You have to go short into the lows, but this has been a big, strong move down. And so when it comes off that trend line based off these lows here, I'd probably take that trade. Especially as slow a day as it's been, you're probably not going to get anything much better than that. And it runs on down. And again, I don't see any way to enter here. You don't want to enter at this point right here. I think there's a failed second entry long. It was either here or here. There's your first break higher. It was right here. Yeah. But you don't want to go at that point. You think that looks like that's the lower trend channel line, and you don't want to go short into that. It turns out it's a midline, and it does pull back and test it right here, but the bar's not is too bullish, and you get another bar here, but this is really your signal bar, so it's just not a very good setup. And you've been away from the EMA, But it does. It runs a perfect equal distance down here and bounces with a big bullish bar. And look how far away from the EMA we are. That's risky taking this trade. I'll never market anything more than green. You really are better off to wait on the higher low, which doesn't come back up here to right into the trend line. So it just doesn't really help you. But you may take that trade, and if you do, you probably the reason you like to take those trades is because you catch an important low of the day. And look, you could have ridden this all the way back up. I mean, this is a big rally, 29.60 or so, all the way back to 29.95. I mean, that's almost a 3,000. That's almost a 40-point move right there. So if you get lucky and catch that, and it's a little bit of a gamble, but if you can see, if you know that that's a measured move on that two-tiered channel and it's bouncing perfectly, and you've been away from the EMA that long, it may be worth the shot. But I'm just going to tell you, most people that try to pick bottoms and tops just turn out to be losers. So, it's hard for me to get excited about that for people that are not really good at reading the chart, because you're probably just setting yourself up for failure. Because if you're not good at it and you say, well, okay, well, here's a good chance. Look how long we've been away from the EMA. Look at that bullish bar right there, way away from the EMA, a little bit of an overshoot, and you take that, you get burned. And you can see that a lot of times a day. Here's one, you've been away a long time. Of course, we're not back to the low end, so you just never know. But anyway, that's enough about that. Just if you can catch one of these, they can pay off, but most of the time they're just losers for most people. So, but anyway, you catch a nice little trend up. There's actually a higher low right here, but that's right into the trend line. I don't see any reason to go short there yet either with that trend line and no close outside. But notice what happens. We come up here, we finally get a correction, and you pull back, you get a first entry, then you get a second entry right off the EMA. This is actually into the 2 o'clock hour. That's the reason I marked it green. If that wasn't 2 o'clock yet, I'd probably mark that one blue. And then you actually try to go lower again, and you get a trap there, and you can see what happens to people. I would have entered there too if that wasn't after 2 o'clock. But what I'd want to do is measure this first leg up, and then see if you don't get, there's your target. You can see, doesn't like we quite got there. We only got to basically 29.99, and this was at 01, so we missed it by a couple of points, but that would have been my first target. But anyway, not a lot of trades today, even though we had a huge sell-off. There just wasn't a good chance to get in this. The only thing I would say is if you recognize, generally these trends, this is a real strong trend, but this doesn't have that usual context where you get lots of little dojis and stems on both sides, and it doesn't, this is still looks similar, but it's just not that, you don't have that clarification that like you usually get when it's a strong trend, and you get lots of very shallow corrections. I mean, these corrections are very shallow, that's for sure. You got that part of it, but notice how it's just so bearish. You don't even have much. Nobody's really trying to buy this until here, then they realize it's way overdone, then it rallies. So considering we had so much movement, there just weren't many trades today. This news item really kind of makes it a hard day, and the way they announce it, you basically from 12 o'clock to 1 something, you can't even really trade. And so anyway, not much else we can say about that, but we'll wrap it up. We'll be back again to do another one and wrap up our week. But I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.